Welcome to Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise and News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM, WINA, and brought to you by the Jefferson School Foundation with Marki and Price here in the studio talking to you right from downtown. And we're back.
Man, how long has it been? 3 weeks?
It's been about 3 weeks.
It felt long.
It felt like a long time.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you break a habit.
Well, but it was weird because the calendar was weird because what was it? It was 4th of July was on a Friday, so y'all were off.
Yeah.
And then I was on vacation for one of them, right? It's just like
and I was on vacation for two of them.
Yeah, so they stacked and they just got stacked up in the holiday times when it was 145 degrees.
Actually, we only did one show in June.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe that'll be a thing. We'll just do a little summer hiatus
But yeah, if you think about it, because we're in the nonprofit space, our new year
is
July 1.
That is true.
So the same way we did Christmas and how people are out, we're out because of the new year. Yeah. That's kind of the same thing we did right now because it is the new year. We're celebrating a new year, fiscally speaking, for our nonprofit space.
You know, I just want to say something. That drives me crazy.
What?
The fiscal year thing. Makes me so upset.
Because people don't really care about that. Because how do taxes work?
Right. But they don't match, right? So I'm telling people like, hey, we've got this great tax credit program, but the tax credits that I have expire at the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
But they bridge tax years.
Yes.
And so I'm like, if you gave me a donation on June 30th,
yes, it's
from a different pot.
Yes.
Then July 1st.
Right.
But it doesn't mean anything to your taxes.
It doesn't mean anything to your taxes. That's the problem. Like, people are like, but my taxes, I got time for the taxes.
Yeah, right.
Well, maybe that's not how the credits work.
That's right. Oh, my gosh. It makes me so mad. And then you talk about, like, oh, man. And then, fiscal years and school years. So I'm like, fiscal year 26, but we're school year 25, and we're ba-da-da, right? I don't know. That's beyond the pale of my cognitive abilities. What have you been doing this summer?
I did so much. When it get to June 1, I ain't even play with you. I get to ripping and running.
Really?
Oh, yes. I haven't had a day rest, not a day break. I just came from D.C. I was up there for the July 4th weekend. I was to a concert with some friends.
Who did you see?
Jessie Reyes. She sings like... there's a couple of songs she sings.
Okay.
Like Body Count is one that's super popular. She had a remix with Naomi and Kehlani. And there's another popular songs is Figures.
Canadian singer-songwriter. Okay.
Yeah, so she has a new album out. I think the title is I Never Said I Wasn't Insane.
Okay.
Which I don't know. I respect that.
Okay.
She's one of them crazy ones.
First gained attention with her 2016 hit. Oh, wow.
What is the hit?
Figures?
Figures. That's what I thought it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the song that I knew first, so that makes sense. She's done a couple of songs with Six Black.
Yeah.
Six Lack.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that because it's controversial because he named, it's because he wants to be called Black, but the B is a 6.
Sure.
But so his artist name is Black, but nobody calls him that because
that's supposed to be a B.
It's supposed to be a B. No, there's many interviews with him talking about my name is Black, and they were like,
why did you do that?
Why'd you do that? He might be from Canada as well. The 6 is
so it's a Drake-ish thing.
Yeah, but people are like, I'm never reading the 6 as a B, so they call him Six Lack.
Yeah.
I call him Six Black because I can understand. that. It's the word black, but I need to read the 6 somehow. So I call him Six Black.
Sure.
So she has a couple of good songs with Six Black. But yeah, when June 1 kick off, I get the rolling. I just came back, or not just came back at this point. I went on the Southern Historical Tour.
Oh, that's right.
With,
Talk
Get
a little,
Word.
How was that?
So it wasn't, I'm also doing a presentation on our trip recap next week to our United Way staff, but it was an application process, all costs taken care of if you got accepted, and so it was an amazing opportunity to be able to apply and be able to go on this trip with 40 other community members, and the oldest community member being 89, and the youngest being like 17.
Wow! So
it was such a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
It was like 7 days, 7 stops, bus, plane, like and so it was super cool. I think it was an experience that changed my life in many different ways. Yeah, like just being with people you don't know and having a roommate you don't know and then seeing things you didn't know about.
You like that though?
Yeah, I do.
You like that?
And I was like talking. We got to talk to foot soldiers that who was in the children's march. They was 12 and
people
13.
Are like in the video, in the video. Like that lady.
That's me getting pummeled by the water.
Yes.
Women and men who are now like 80.
Yep.
We had to talk to them specifically at the voting rights museum and stuff, and they're telling their stories. It's like, they took us to jail. They told us to tell them their age was 12 or whatever, so we don't go to adult jail. We were sleeping on floors for 3 days straight. Couldn't contact my mom and my daddy.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that, I think about and was super hard for me in that moment is that you could tell on their face that it felt like it was just yesterday.
Really?
They were people were up there crying, telling the stories.
Really?
I'm like, there is no amount of time that can assuage the type of pain and sacrifice they had to give up. And, they gave up their childhood. They're giving up their adulthoods to this thing.
Sure.
And that really stuck with me, that those people were up there, they were crying. They were, talking about it. They're, still fighting for it. Got the memorabilia on. And it's wow, it's still running. It runs deep in them. So we had a lot of experiences like that. We had a lot of experiences where we went to places you couldn't take pictures.
Sure.
So the only the only way to connect back to that place is in my mind.
You gotta be.
I had to close them out. Yeah, you had to be there. Can't take no pictures. It's funny because some of the older people were taking. I seen them. They was like,
sure. Yeah.
I was like, you ain't supposed to be. I seen one picture from a place that we wasn't supposed to have to take pictures on the Facebook.
Yeah.
I said, no, girl, you wasn't even supposed to be. You put it on Facebook. They say they got copyright issues.
Right.
It's supposed to be a place of memory.
That's right.
And it's super funny. You know how old aunties are. But I had a good time, Wouldn't change anything. Would go back and do it all again the same.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. But that was just one 7-day trip in my full June.
It's a wild trip. It's a wild place. And it is also sort of been crystal. There's not a lot else going on.
No,
right?
That was something I talked to people when I got back about, is that these places feel stuck in time.
Yep.
You go down there and they got this whole block commemorated. Oprah got her tag down there.
Yep.
Tyler Perry got his tag down there. That they're sponsoring the city, and shout out to them for that. But everything else is literally boarded up.
Yeah.
You can't put a AT&T building down there because the space is a national park, and so people can't grow in the way.
There's no industry.
Yeah, there's no way to grow the city in ways in which Charlottesville does, and we're building skyscrapers, and we're putting 6 banks, and we're, you know what I'm saying? So it's literally, it feels like it's insane. You know how in movies when they in Mexico they put a sepia filter on it. And you in a different place that's not the place that they're propagandizing. Well, that's how it was. That's how it was. I'm looking around at Alabama,
right?
And they got 6 boarded up buildings on one block.
Yeah. And
then we at the history museum, and I'm walking with foot soldiers, and I'm like, this is very interesting. I'm seeing this place in Sapia, and it makes me think about preservation, but also growth of a city, and how those things those places, because they were central to civil rights, pushing that movement forward, that they were left behind in a sense after doing the work of sacrificing itself
That's interesting.
to growth.
That's interesting. So sort of this theory that they didn't even reap many of the benefits that they fought for.
People had to leave. They said, well, I don't want people to know
That's right.
I'm from Alabama, from Mississippi. I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And the place reflects the fact that it had to sacrifice its communities.
You want to hear a crazy story about the state of Mississippi?
Yes, I do.
That I learned recently. So, in 2011, 2012, in the United States of America, our United 50 states, what do you think Mississippi ranked in 4th grade reading?
It's one of them Southern ones. I'm not gonna, and that's bad to say because it's a negative connotation with the South.
Sure.
And I love the South. I'm going to say out of 50.
Yes.
If 1 is the best and 50 is the worst.
Yes, correct.
You're making it seem like it's. I can't tell if this is reverse. 48th.
That's a very good guess. 49th. It's a very good guess.
I couldn't tell if you were about to say they're super. They got the best schools in the nation.
Here's the thing. That's part 2 of the story. Do you know what they are today?
That was how many years ago?
2012. So call it 13, 12
and they
or 13.
Were 49th?
49th, yep.
And is this a situation where they got better?
They can't get much worse.
Because they can't get much worse. I'm going to go with 38th.
9th.
Oh! They kicking our tail.
The state of Mississippi. Let me ask you this. What do you think about when you think of Mississippi?
Nina Simone, Mississippi, goddamn.
Okay, I was gonna say Emmett Till.
Okay.
Right? It's
civil rights, it's violence.
Sure. And it's like, it's not commitment to literacy.
No.
Ninth.
How did that go?
And this is where it gets really interesting. They did a bunch of things, both locally but also legislatively at the state level, right? Including contributing a lot of money, probably to the tune of, to date, $175 million, right?
Okay.
And this is across the state of Mississippi.
And is that comparable to what we're doing?
So this is the conversation this just came across my desk a couple of days ago, and it's called the Mississippi Miracle, right?
It's got to be.
But basically what they did three things. They did a lot of money. They did a lot of different types of training, and so there's this theory of
staff?
change. Yeah, and like curricular stuff. So there's an interesting theory of change that people don't talk about often, is that it's really easy to go from really bad to better. Right? It's hard to go from better to really good. So there is some of that baked in there, right?
Yes.
If you're the worst, it's easy to demonstrate progress.
If you give $10,000 more to 2 more kids to eat,
that's exactly
you're going to do a little better.
That's exactly right. You know what I'm saying? And so people will say that. We're like, well, you got to be. Someone said this one to me.
The ninth is impossible.
Ninth.
I was thinking they got 10 spots. Because once you get to 40, the best thing about being 49th and 50th is that next year, you got to do better.
It's all the way up. It's only up.
Oh, we did $10 million last year? Well, next year we got to do $20 million, period. If we got to stop the fountains from running.
That's right.
If the food bank only got 10 pounds of food a day.
We got to go up.
Yeah,
Yeah. But they also did something that is interesting in the context of sort of education literature, is they stopped passing kids who couldn't read.
How do we know that?
It's documented. They said if you can't hit this benchmark, you don't go to third grade.
I wonder about what are the demographics
of the state of Mississippi?
Yeah, I would like to know the demographics of the state of Mississippi.
And so we're digging into this now, but what they said is that it only affected about 7% of kids. So that sort of barrier, right, that particular piece of legislation only affected 7 to 8% of their kids, right? But what I thought was interesting, and anecdotally, as we read more, what I think is interesting about that is that doing something like that changes a lot of the incentives on both ends, right? Because if you know
schools and parents,
sure, right? Because if you know you can't just socially promote a kid, I would argue you start to be more creative or desperate or whatever. You do things differently. If you know that there's no off ramp, you can't just be like, well, right? Because we will do this thing now where like, oh, you didn't pass your SOL. Here's a slightly different test. Here's a slightly different thing.
So we can kind
of move. If you can't do that, you could argue that it creates an environment whereby you have to try different things, and you have to be more creative, and you have to be more urgent, and you have to do things that might be outside of the normal lexicon to try and make this work. Otherwise, you have to be the person to stand up out there and say 30% of our kids didn't pass, right?
Right.
You don't want that number to be high.
But they are allowing that number to be high.
They're allowing that number to be what it is. And then at last reading, it was 7%. So, okay, you want that number to go down, but it seems like they're allowing it to be whatever it will be.
And having to get creative on what the barriers to that number
But at that point, your incentives align.
Yes.
Everyone wants that number to be low.
Yes.
Parents want that number to be low. School divisions want that number to be low. Teachers want that number to be low. Right? And I think in education, there's often a misalignment of incentives. Right? And whereby the system is allowed to incentivize the thing that propagates the system. Right? If VDOE evaluates high schools on their graduation rates, the incentive is not necessarily, and this is not saying that it's nefarious, but it's not necessarily to educate all the kids. It's to graduate all the kids, which you can do one of two ways. You can prepare them to graduate, or you can just graduate them, right? That's how we end up in an environment where 47% of our black 11th graders are reading on grade level and 85% of them are graduating.
Right. If they aren't reading on the grade level, the graduation rate shouldn't be so high.
It shouldn't, right? But again, the Department of Education is saying we are evaluating and to a degree funding schools based on that.
Right, and so they have to give you what you asked for.
Any rational actor is going to say, okay, we need that. We need money. We need the schools to be open, right? Like that's how we are being adjudicated.
And in Mississippi, was it that they took away the fact that we're not giving you money we're going to give you money regardless because you need the money.
Right. They're pumping money into this thing legislatively at the state level, right? So then you get a little bit of a change. It's like, okay, cool, we understand. And again, they're starting younger, and I would argue they could start even younger. But it's so this whole theory of earlier intervention, really coordinated investment on early intervention. But then I think it's that level of that's a pretty risky move, and there's a lot of educators and a lot of people that would push back against that. And I don't know this to be true. And again, we're sort of looking at it right now and trying to dissect it. But the hard part about education too is there is a sort of heavily political piece to it, right? Like this, I wonder how legislatively palatable something like that would be in very progressive Charlottesville, right? Because what are people going to?
But nobody's going to want to see that the graduation rate is down.
Let's say we're not. Let's say we go. Okay, we're not going to pass kids from 2nd to 3rd grade who don't meet the muster, like quantitatively.
Yes.
Right. And this is taking out kids with learning differences or kids who are English language learners, or you can have different paths for those kind of things, right? Because that's obviously very different. A family that comes here that's resettled who doesn't speak English should not be held to the same standard as my
So those
kids,
things are
right?
being factored differently.
So let's take 3 different buckets. Let's take the learning differences bucket, whether you're diagnosed with autism, whether you have a special accommodation. Let's take the English language learners bucket, and then let's take the other bucket, right? But that other bucket has a wide diaspora of kids too, right? From much different home environments and resource bases and things like that. Because here's what I think will happen: if you do that, what the heavily white liberal intelligentsia of Charlottesville will say is, who are the kids that are going to be the likeliest to fail or to be held back?
You know who that's going to be.
You know who it's going to be, right?
You know who it's going to be.
Now, here's the side question:
you're saying that people don't want to say? But doing it this way, we don't.
I'm saying people don't want to see.
They don't want to see that.
They don't want to see that, right?
But we know that.
We know that. So the side
question it doesn't matter what we see.
So this is where we're going, right? Is the side question is, that might be right, but is the discomfort that comes with confronting that truth?
Yes.
Right? Because I think sometimes the kids and families who need the most help pay the price for our cognitive comfort.
Yes.
Right?
I can see that.
Because the price that gets paid for us to not confront what that truth will be, it will be the minority kids and it will be the low-income kids. But we don't want to say that. We certainly don't want to see that.
But that feels like such a fact that it would be it's insane to think that a person would be scared to see that when it's already even true now. Like, it's just like...
Sure, but it's easier to have these we've talked about this.
No,
this whole school renaming thing,
point.
these progressively political wins.
Yes.
That don't really move the needle for the kids or families.
Who's that quote by that was like, we cannot settle for, these little political wins, symbolic wins. We cannot settle for symbolic wins.
Yeah.
Because symbolic wins will kill you.
Yeah.
Because we need systemic change.
Sure.
I don't know if that was Malcolm or who that was.
Let's find it, but it sounded good.
I think it's essentially that, like, if somebody puts up a statue or like a memorial statue to Harriet Tubman, or puts Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill, and we feel powerful about that, is putting her on that bill. Love Harriet. I would have been with her. She wouldn't have had to shoot me. I would have been on her heels. I'd have been on her heels, holding her apron. She wouldn't have had to worry about me. But is her being on the $20? Is that systemic change in giving money back to the communities who are suffering the way we do capitalism? It's like
And look, I think you can make the argument that who we deify or who we sort of objectively celebrate as a society says a lot about where we are culturally, right?
True.
So it is in some ways a bellwether of the era that we're in, right? We're renaming schools back to other stuff. Now, whether or not that is...
And you said that costs a lot of money.
It costs a lot of money to go both ways, right? So y'all are actually investing in
You're not saving money by giving it back its original name.
Sure. That's right.
So you did the spending the same way.
Right. So you could argue that is indicative of a mindset. Yeah. And I buy that argument, right? Yeah. I certainly do. I think the issue that I have is not about whether or not it's a good or bad idea, or whether or not it's like morally pro-social or not. It's about the priorities. And I think what we're talking about is the priorities of the things and the rank order in which we do the things that matter most or not. And by the way, that quote was an Obama quote.
Obama?
To settle for symbolic gestures without follow-up with the hard work of more lasting change is how we lose our way again.
I would not have guessed that, so... I know I had heard it, but
and it was part of a eulogy for Reverend Pickney in 2015.
Okay, I knew something about symbolic wins.
But But I think he says it, though. He says, without the following up of the hard work of more, right? So it's not that these things shouldn't be done.
No, yeah, I like seeing her. I don't even think I ain't never seen a Harriet 20, but if I had one, I would have it in a little case. I would have it keeping it fresh and mint.
Sure.
I like that. I would like seeing her. Have I seen it? No, but I would love seeing it.
Yeah.
But what did we do for people?
Yeah. That's the big question, right? And so this is the issue that I think a lot of people have, and that people are flagging, even in something like education, which seems like it would be a relatively pure enterprise, right? What do all these people get into education for? To teach, right? Which is, you could argue, one of the more noble professions, right? But it gets really murky, and it gets murkier the deeper you go. And I think that is the interesting point about how something like legislation affects the enterprise, right? And how something like, your work, my work, the work that we're doing in sort of these small alcoves can be made easier or harder by this sort of canopy, right? The environment that you're doing this in has a heavy influence on your ability to do it at scale.
Yeah, and so with this data that you guys collected from the Mississippi Miracle, what is your goal? What do you see for the future of leaning into that information and how we use it to have a Virginia Miracle?
Depends, right? I think we have to figure out, one, what happens, with our own sort of political apparatus in Virginia in November, right? And I think that has a lot to do with how things go. And I mean, we've seen this at the university. Charlottesville's been back in the news for a lot of different things. And so how those winds blow obviously have a big effect on where we go. And we're seeing it at the federal level of the bill that got signed and how a lot of these things have disproportionate effects on the folks who need the most help. Yeah. And so trying to put all those pieces together is going to require a little bit of urgency and a lot of patience, and thinking about how do we it is where we're going with it now is trying to figure out what net effect has this had on all of these other parts of
You mean it's
society,
directly in Mississippi?
Right? It's in Mississippi, but what is that? We know what it's done to the literacy rates.
Yeah, like
what does that mean?
What did it do to the poverty rates? What did it do? Did more people have housing? Did more people have child care?
Economic development? Sure, absolutely, right. Are there knock-on effects from this?
I wonder about those other factors. I wonder, did they improve?
Sure.
And if they did, woo.
Sure, right? And that's the thing, and that's what I'm interested in.
We'd be turning a blind eye to actual progress, wouldn't we?
That's what I'm interested in, is seeing what that looks like, right? And what, again, because what, you could draw pretty clear lines to say, okay, these kids who are better educated, better prepared at every developmental level, you would expect to see as they matriculate through school and become adults, an increase in these other pro-social markers that would indicate that things are going better. It's hard for me to assume that this happened in isolation, but we'll find out, and we're interested to see what that looks like. But again, as we come to our own political crossroads in the fall, right? It's an interesting thought experiment, right? When we look at the future of education and we think about a place, Mississippi of all places, that has done something really creative and impactful. I found that interesting more than just what happened. If that had happened and you would have been like, this is New York City, I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, New York's got a lot of money. New York's a big city. Like, I think it was more interesting to me that it was the state of Mississippi, and it was a Republican. It was a Republican governor.
That's
right?
why I was asking about the,
It was some old white dude.
What's the political scene down there? Yeah. Well, the political scene is what I told you is that it got a lot of problems going on.
Yeah. It was an old white dude who was the governor when these bills were signed. Right. So again, we love to turn things that are not partisan into political fodder. But I find it particularly interesting that, and I don't know anything about this guy other than I Googled him, but like, right. But if you told me that in 2012, the state that was second to last in reading
is now
in a political administration launched one of the most aggressive and ambitious reading efforts in the country, I would have said you got your facts wrong.
Yes.
You read that thing. Some part of that statement was incorrect.
Yes.
Right? So I think what it does is cut through this, it has to be this sort of really liberal area to do this. I think it's an interesting priority argument, right? Mississippi hasn't done a bunch of other stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? And we could very clearly be like, all right, maybe y'all can build capacity in other places, right? And I think that's part of the political game. But, I think it is interesting that was one of the things that they prioritized financially.
Yeah.
In a way that really demonstrated I mean, like immense growth over a decade, right? Lit. 12 years or whatever it is. So I think that's interesting. And I wonder, again, you need, this as well as I do. To do anything real, you need money and time. Right? We are in a world where someone says, here's some money, fix it today. And we go, ooh, and we scramble around and blah-da-blah-da-blah. Right? I think it's an interesting story to tell that, with the right amount of energy, but the right understanding of how things work and the time it takes to do things.
But I think there are so few people who know how it works.
What do you mean?
Like you're talking about this money and this time thing.
Yeah.
Well, the people who got the money didn't know nothing about it.
So that's interesting, right? Right. I mean, there's a proximity argument to be made, right? And I think that's an interesting argument too, right? Of just like, how much do you know about what you're actually trying to do?
We'll never know.
Or do we know enough? I mean, let me ask you that. Do we know enough? Right?
Right.
Like, do you think that as practitioners, right, we know enough about some of the things that we're trying to work through?
You know that saying, you're building the plane while you fly?
Yeah.
I think that all things are, that way. So but I do think that people know less than they should know after having been in the work long enough. And
why is that?
I think all these are in our spaces. It's we're thinking about ourselves as a business, but the people closest to the problem aren't involved in the planning of those things. I'm sure a person who has a child would be way more helpful, or that's been in a situation in Mississippi would be better suited to solve the problems of how we fix it. But if you don't got your 2 degrees and you don't got your 2 degrees, your 10 years of experience in whatever field, you can't even get the check.
Why haven't we made any movement on that yet, right? Because it does seem like the things that we screen for don't match the work that we're trying to get done in some places. If you're going to be an accountant, you should know how to account.
Yes, some people, yes. There are things where I need you to know a little something.
Let me ask you this. Do you need your degree to do your job?
I don't think so.
I don't. I barely have a degree. I went to college. I went to school to play sports.
My degree is specifically in African American studies. I think it gives me important context to why this work is important.
Okay.
But I don't think I'm using it.
But the technical aspects of your job are not.
No. I tell people that every job is learn on the job. I think most people can do any job.
Right.
Right. I know people who don't have a degree that are better than me at a lot of other things, and they could probably be doing my job better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't have the opportunity to do my job better because there are criteria put in place that would take you out of the running for being in a position that I'm in. That degree says
the credential thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does that mean for? I mean, really, we're having the same conversation, right? This disproportionately affects the same group of folks, right? And so it's an access and opportunity question. And it's an access and opportunity question from a very, very young age because, it comes back to this whole theory of resource, right? You start behind if you don't have the stuff, right? You guys, I'm sure you have some information on this on the VKRP stuff for the kids, but these kids are going into kindergarten
behind.
Very behind.
Already behind.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, part of the argument for me is that a lot of this stuff that I don't think the schools are doing everything right. I think they're doing a really good job, but we can't responsibly say that it's the school's fault because before those kids touch grass on a school property,
they wasn't even with me.
They haven't walked through the door yet.
Yeah, they wasn't even with me. But it's it's a community village issue. Everybody has to have the same set as a line as Mississippi did. And right now they're not.
With a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing with early ed access and stuff like that, I mean, it does feel like. Do you think that because of where we are, because of the town that we're in, that's very wealthy, but is also very I would argue, performatively progressive.
Yeah, I thought Charlottesville is one of the largest wealth gaps in Virginia. Like,
it's got a huge literacy gap too. Yeah, but like,
huge...
do you think those things actually can work against?
Yes.
The actual progress of the thing.
Yes, I had a person tell me that before the last November election, that if one person won, that they could do better in their field because more people would feel guilty.
Interesting.
Interesting. That not necessarily they agree, that they like the person.
Sure.
But that alone would make people perform better, visually speaking.
Sure.
Because they would have so much guilt about how things had turned out.
Right.
That we would do better. Our field would do better.
Huh.
You know how like
and do better as measured by resources in the door, not necessarily just outcomes though.
Just like you think about COVID.
Yeah.
People were, worse off. So many things were going, bad for people. Domestic violence was up. But you know what else was up? Dollars. Donations by the wealthiest people. They gave more.
Did it matter?
Does it seem like it mattered?
I don't know. Because I have a problem with the way that a lot of
I know that
places
COVID
measure.
People increased giving. People that could give increased their giving in COVID.
Do you care why people give money?
Are they telling me when they gave it to me?
Are they telling why they gave it to you?
Yeah.
Let's assume they do. And let's strip out the bottom 10% of like it's really wacky blood money, but like the other 90%.
No.
I don't know that I do either.
I don't care.
As long as you let me do with it.
Which is the problem. Most people don't want you to do with it what you want to do with it.
Yeah.
They want you to do it what they want to do with it.
There was an interesting article about this, about a young woman who won a Rhodes Scholarship, and I didn't know this until I read it, but the gentleman for whom the Rhodes Scholarship was named was apparently a like legendary anti-Semite and like a real upside down.
Oh my
dude.
goodness! Can we have anything?
Yeah, no. Well, no, because I mean, think about the era and time when these things were.
Can't have nothing.
Yeah. What is his name? Cecil Rhodes. Yeah, he played a significant role in the colonization of Southern Africa. He was like not a quote unquote controversial figure. Right. So what happened was there was apparently a couple people who were nominated for it, or who even may have been awarded it, who in protest didn't take it or didn't accept the Oxford part of it. I
commend those people for what they could do.
Well, and so this was part of a really interesting conversation that started brewing. Was like, okay, so there is do we like link stuff? Do we have show notes? Is this a real thing?
You know what you should do?
What?
We should have a little box for people to write suggestions. That's a good suggestion. I'm gonna write it down and get back to some people.
Okay, there you go.
I think we probably should have show notes.
Yeah. Well, because I'm looking at this now, and there's a thing from African American Registry.org. It says Black History and the Rhodes Scholarship, a story, right? And so part of what folks were saying is that there were a couple, and I want to say they were young black women who had been awarded a Rhodes Scholarship. And a couple of them, and there was a controversy started to brew because there was a couple of them that were like, we're not going to take it, and one said she was or whatever. But what I thought this young lady said was really interesting, and it was sort of that. She said, what better way to, sort of, there was some amount of profanity in there, but basically like what better way to make a statement about, the namesake for this scholarship than me, a young black woman, to get this and then use it to do what I want with it, right? She was like, that's the power of it, is not using it. And she was like, I respect that, but my version of this is to be like, thank you, I'm going to take it, and then I'm going to use it I'm going to use your money to further my thing.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
I think that's interesting too.
And I think that, I wonder.
And I applaud her.
I think both are valid, but I think at some point, I wonder how outcome focused we can or should be at any given time, right? Like, what is the virtue worth? And I think that's always a very interesting conversation in our space of like, sometimes it's probably worth something, right?
Yeah, and I think it is worth something.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's worth something.
I agree. But I sort of strength test that, every now and again of like, if it's in pursuit of the right thing, what is it worth? And can you stomach what you know, to some degree, you know, what does it cost?
Is this the end justifying the means?
It is, I think, right? But I think I think what's interesting about nonprofits in particular is that we often, and you'd mentioned this earlier, like we often evaluate ourselves based on what? How much money we raised.
Right.
Is that indicative of actual good work? Right? So if we look at June 30th and we go, wow, we made our fundraising goal, what does that actually mean? Does that mean we helped people who we were supposed to help? Does that mean we made a demonstrable difference in the lives of it?
But I mean, but that's why people need the storytelling aspect. I mean, that's why we're always working on the storytelling aspect of what we do, because money raised isn't, you know, it's money raised, but it's not impact.
Right.
Per se.
But that's what I'm saying, is that if we're measuring ourselves on a thing that is not the thing.
But I'm sure people who are fundraising and doing those are having to put forth impact reports.
Yeah,
and
but
statements.
I wrote a lot of them.
Right.
They're not in their totality entirely accurate. You know that. That's not a secret, right? Like, you tell the story.
But everybody is telling.
If you have
having
a good
to tell the
storyteller,
yeah,
right? You can avoid a little bit of the pitfalls that become a very, very wicked environment. And
not wicked.
Wicked from a David Epstein standpoint, where it's not.
No good deed goes unpunished. No act of charity goes unrelented. Okay,
yeah,
I take that serious.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's that interesting sort of thought experiment of, we all celebrate the ability to raise money. And it's certainly not nothing. I'm not saying nobody's doing any work and like everybody's sort of lying all the time. I'm certainly not saying that. But what I am saying is that it is easier to raise money when you have money, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not always measured on, oh, we did the thing or the things, right? And so I think it, again, back to this incentive conversation, if it incentivizes the raising of the money. It doesn't incentivize the doing of the work. If you have, if time is finite, which it always is, and if energy is finite, which it always is, and if staff is, what it is, where do you commit your resources?
Yeah.
Right? And we all make the argument like, cool, we got to raise the money to do the thing, right? Which is true. Like, that's how that works. But I just wonder if you were able to drill down into like the operationalization of all these organizations, is more energy going to raising the money, or is more energy going to doing the thing? And I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that.
But I think the interrogation of that is immensely interesting to me. Because, now's the time of year where everyone's writing an annual report. And I spend a decent amount of time reading some of these annual reports, and I go, okay.
I get them in the mail.
Yeah, okay.
I be reading them too.
Sure. Right. Okay. Cool.
Viable.
Right? Yeah, cool. But then you look broadly, and then you go, okay, cool. If all this is happening, here's a question I want to ask you. If all this is happening, let's say that everyone's operating in good faith. Okay. If all of these things are happening to the degree at which they are happening across all 954,000 nonprofits in Charlottesville, why are things not changing or changing more quickly? Wouldn't you make the argument that if all this stuff is working?
I would also say we overestimate how much it takes, and that it takes to actually help the people. So I feel like, when I'm thinking about it, it's like when I'm hungry and I eat a little snack, I get hungrier. So it's like, okay, so this person needed $1 million to make it out of poverty.
Yeah.
So we gave him $50,000. $50,000 did do something.
Sure.
It had an impact.
Sure.
But it's almost like we helped backslide you. We gave you a step, and then sent we started throwing rocks. All it did was make it so seem that you could make it. In actuality, things were also around you getting worse systemically. So I feel like, we underestimate how much things cost, and so I think people are doing the work, but we're not able to help as many people as we say that we can help.
Yeah, well, we've talked about that for years.
For the money.
Right?
So I think people are doing work.
I agree with wholeheartedly agree.
I think they are making impact. But it's not at the scale at which would be possible, any of us, even together, to move the needle. Like looking at data. Like
you don't think so?
Is it? And we're saying people are working in good faith. It's not.
I'm saying assuming people are working in good faith.
And so I'm using that as the assumption.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because
but if these numbers are true,
we need a nonprofit so big that we call it the government. Like that's the type of thing that can move. We need that type of movement.
But
all
I think
of us
also,
together don't make up big enough things.
Overpromise too. Again, in pursuit of raising the money, right? Does any and I think there are particular few sort of very special visionary, funders who have been close to these problems. You can go sit in front of them and say, hey, look, I need this amount of money because I'm trying to move 10 families to this. And they go, I get that. Because I understand that the gap, even in education, for kids from the suburbs and their peers is like $30,000 a kid a year. So just do the math. At 10 kids, that's $300,000. That's not even your admin cost, right? So you're looking at, for a year to work with those 10 kids, you're already above $250,000.
Yeah.
That feels like an extraordinary amount of money.
It does feel like an extraordinary
10 families.
It do.
But if you start to do the math and you break it apart, we're talking about housing, we're talking about education, we're talking about transportation, we're talking about the job, we're talking about the
finish line per se, and it's just like
right.
It seems unattainable.
Well, but the thing again, if you do it and look at it at that lens, people go, "Wow, that's a lot of money." And I go, "Yeah, sure," but then look, break it down. You've got kids. Do the math. Do the math on yourself. Do the math on your own kids. I say, all right, word. I own my house. I own my car. My wife's got a job. I spend almost that much to put my 4-year-old in preschool. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's almost all of it right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the amount I spend on fruit every week.
Not fruit.
That's the other $5,000 right there. Right there. But then we're talking about ballet class. We're talking about gymnastics. We're talking about soccer. We're talking about piano lessons. We're talking about I got grandma and grandpa. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great measure of like how much do you think? But I also think that people don't assume that other people in worse off positions are going to be getting the best of things. So
let's assume
if
that
it costs
not.
you $250,000, it should cost them $100 because they shouldn't have any choices. They shouldn't be doing extra, what people consider extra, even if those things would improve quality of life.
That's exactly
and living
right.
base. Yeah, no, doing the math on me is not doing the math on them because we've othered those people already.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I've othered you.
That's a brilliant point, right?
Yeah.
And we call it something different because I'm allowed to call that just dad stuff.
Right, but they aren't.
But they aren't. And then we say
they can't even have you can't pay for joy.
We'll give you the cut rate though. We'll give you the cut rate, right? We'll give you the watered down version, right? People, okay, it costs you 30, can we do it for 12?
You can have water Kool-Aid.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point. I'm like, no, we can't do it for 12. But again, if the incentive, if there are those funders out there, and I think they are the ones who are, you can see this groundswell of folks like this that are pushing a lot of these things forward, right? But I don't know. I think they are still the bug, not the feature often. And so if more of the money is in places that disincentivize that, what are you going to do? You're going to say, we can do this with 1,000 people. And they go, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, at some point, you can't.
You can't.
Because math, right? You can't.
Yeah, people definitely want you to do it at a discounted rate.
Right.
Even if they know, they did the math and they know it's impossible.
Right?
It doesn't make them
feel good. And so we tell
good.
these humongous, lofty stories because they sound good and that's what people want to hear. But ultimately, the demonstration of that doesn't come to fruition mostly because it's not possible, right? It's not possible to do that kind of thing at that type of scale.
And that's why I'm always just pushing out good vibes as the fiscal year starts. We need to make some fiscal year resolutions. That's what we need to do. We need to hold ourselves as a system more accountable. We need to clean our own kitchen. We need to clean house ourselves. Yeah. Which is super hard because you gotta look in the mirror, right? Yeah. If we all had a look in the mirror conference.
Ooh. Okay.
Oh, let's write that down.
What happens? What happens at the look at the mirror conference?
We all hold each other accountable for the things we said we would do and we didn't.
Okay. Okay. Can this type of work, which I think carries with it, I think almost all people are in it for the right reasons. I think people want to help.
Yeah.
I think people's egos get wrapped up in that really quickly. Can stuff like this survive people's egos?
I think it can.
Do you?
I do. I think that you're always going to have ego in everything you do.
Sure.
But there's always going to be people to counterbalance that.
Okay.
Or maybe not the people at the top, but there's a person that didn't have enough money for their staff position that still went out and I know people like that who they're not, they have egos at the top of the game, but they went out and did the things they could do with the money they had to do it. Did they help all the thousands of people? No.
Yeah.
But I think those things survive off the people who we put put my faith in to do what was right for people, even if they didn't have the most say or power to fix things that were broken in their own lane or system.
Huh.
So I know that there's always going to be one person there that was there for the right reasons, even when people aren't there for the right reasons.
Huh.
And that will help it survive. I mean, we see stuff close down every day. So.
Yeah, it just seems like the confounding factor of a lot of things is the people, right?
Yeah. Like how are you? That's who and why do we hire people, and how are those people? Like I think about like Chick-fil-A. I'm like, every time I go up there and they say thank you, I appreciate it. Whatever they say, thank you, and they say my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm like, they have a hiring practice,
sure,
that are getting, to my knowledge, the right people with the right disposition for the work that they're doing, and that's what we need to be working on in our space as well. It's hard, you hire people, you fire people, people ain't in the right positions, but they're talented. You're trying to find the right fit.
Yeah,
and so that's always what I'm thinking about. I haven't hired nobody because I don't have any hiring capabilities. But when I'm seeing...
You have hiring capabilities, just not hiring authority.
Oh, okay, that's right. And so I think I can, when I've seen people being hired, I'm like, I can tell.
Really?
Yeah, I can look at the piece of paper, I can look at a resume, but that's not necessarily what I look at as the main thing, and I think people do.
Yeah.
I'm going to go by how I felt about you when I was talking to you.
Yeah.
Not everybody does that. There have been times where people are like, I like this person. I was like, well, that's not the person I would pick.
Huh.
Based on the conversations I had.
Yeah.
And that's something about your gut, right? And you also can't pick good people if you ain't good people.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I consider myself good people.
Yeah.
And so I think I have a judgment call.
You got a good radar.
I got a gut on it.
Right. How much of the work that all these nonprofits do you think, give me a percentage, how much of it is actually aimed at solving the problem they think they're solving?
Let me think.
Is there do they have enough information to even do what they think they're doing? So here's my example. Everybody on earth hired a financial coach recently. Everyone. Including y'all. Everyone. Right? Now, you could make the argument that financial literacy is clearly important, but for somebody who doesn't have enough money...
I always say that.
It's not that important.
I always say that. I've been saying that for about 5 years. You cannot financial coach out of a person who has systemic issues.
There's just not enough.
There's not enough finances to coach.
Right? So it's not about irresponsible spending. It's about increasing the capacity of the money in the door. But I only ask that in the context of, if that's what everyone did, and if that's what a lot of these nonprofits were doing and what we're keying in on, how did that happen? How did that become the topic du jour?
I think that was done. I think that all of those people were doing that in good faith. Thinking it's hard, not for me. They're hard for some people to know what is necessary, because I think that it's an easy straight line to say that a person who's having trouble with their finances needs a financial coach.
I agree with you.
That feels like a straight line, right?
I agree with you.
The problem in line becomes, the reason for their financial position is not because they're irresponsible. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of times we think people are irresponsible, and actually they're doing better than us. And it's like, if you think about a mother, who
she doesn't have a Hulu subscription she doesn't know about.
Yeah, it's also like she's actually probably doing better with money than you are.
Sure.
You're doing good with money because you have money, right? She actually fed her 4 kids with $7.
That's right.
Could you feed your 4 kids with $7?
So I think
she's literally fine. You need the financial coach.
So this is the genesis of the question, though, is that where does it come from? Where is that information coming in that leads these organizations to do this thing that might be directionally accurate, but is missing a big piece of the information that people would be like, oh, that's interesting.
Because I think that's a straight line assumption that people who don't have money need a financial coach. I can only assume it's a societal understanding of what it means to be in poverty. That poverty is seen as a personal choice. Mm-hmm. That you've made personal choices that have allowed you to be less than me. So people are like, oh, you're in poverty? That is not because people wouldn't sell you a house or your zoning system is contributing to your bad health. You made mistakes.
So this is this whole sort of hyper-American agency thing. Like I made the choices.
Yes, people think you made choices.
Right.
People in poverty specifically.
Yeah.
That led them to be worse off than you.
But that also allows them to say, I'm successful because I did it.
Yes.
Right.
So because you think that, because you think these are all bad choices.
Right.
You need to correct those bad choices with training.
Okay.
But they're not only some people, few people, me and you, know that those people aren't in those positions because of bad choices. Mm. They are in those positions because of systemic failures of our society. Mm-hmm. that lead. We can track that with numbers and systems, and we can go back and look at the bank. The bank wouldn't give you a loan in your area, your grandma a loan in her area because they was not giving loans to black people, even though she had the credit and the same amount of money as somebody else. Those things are systemic, but because we're so individualistic that we think that those decisions are your position is always because of the choices you made, not because of the choices that were made for you by the systems that are acting on you like gravity. Mm. People not flying is not because they cut their wings. It's because gravity is holding you down. It's forcing you to stand on your feet and not be in the air. But so systemic failures are like gravity. Huh. They are holding you down. Because that's just how the society is set up. And so I don't think poor people did that to themselves. I don't care if they bought 6 Mountain Dews. I don't care if they got ice cream cake for their kid.
Well, it's the whole thing that we did with, I think we did it with millennials, but we also certainly did it with younger generations, that like the reason nobody can buy a house is because you went to brunch too many times. Yes, got avocado toast. That's it, right? You've just now said it. We can't have houses because of personal choices we made when we were 6 years old. Right. But also, the thing about that I think is particularly interesting, which is similar to this example, right? You hire a financial coach, but then you talk to the single mom with 3 kids making $15 an hour. It's not a lack of financial acumen that has led her to not have enough money to pay rent, pay bills, and da-da. In this avocado toast example, you say, okay, let's say you got avocado toast every single day all year, and it costs you $3. What is the net on that? $1,000. Does that really? Is that what's keeping you? That's what's pricing you out of the housing market. Is $1,000? I was like, y'all, even if they didn't buy those avocado toast, they would not have been able to buy the home. And now I'm without avocado toast. The difference in that house in Belmont was one less trip to Bodo's. Yes, I feel like we want people to be unhappy on their way to changing things, even though those things couldn't have got them to a better place anyway. Like I said, I needed that avocado toast to make it through my dead-end job because I was because it was killing me and burning me out. I needed that toast to get today. But in their mind, no, you didn't. If had you been better financially, you would have not done that. But I wouldn't have been able to even save that $1,000 because I'd be probably dead. Because there are so many things working against me that I need joy. Even poor people need joy. I don't care if they buy TVs. I don't care if they buy purses. Like, they still weren't going to be able to buy the house because the house was unattainable from the very beginning because of systemic issues. That's a very interesting statement, and certainly one that is not controversial, but maybe it just sounds interesting to me. I know they do not want you to be buying Fruit Loops. No, but when you said poor people need joy, I think that, like, I don't know why that rings so interesting to me, because the more I think about it does seem exactly like that. That, like, you, in pursuit of progress, you have to make more sacrifice. Okay, so hold on. We're basically telling people that in pursuit of progress, you have to make more and different sacrifices than I have to make or have had to make. And we allow ourselves to say that because we ascribe our quote-unquote success to things that we did. Supposedly, you didn't get avocado toast, and that's why you have a house. That's right. I didn't buy any avocado toast. That's why I bought a house. But in fact, people did in fact have joy and still got their issue and got their thing. Yeah, well, people bought avocado toast for me. Yeah, and they got the money, and they still got the house, they got the car, they got the girl, they got the wedding, they got all this stuff, the bank account, the savings. Because deep down, you know that those choices aren't the reason you are successful. At the end of the day, do you think people know that? It's chalk it up to luck. Do you think people know that? No, I don't. I think that's why we look down on people who don't have the financial means to rise up through the financial brackets. I don't think people know. Do you think people genuinely believe that, like, they're that capable? People think they did it all on their own. There were no lucky breaks. Interesting.
There were no barely misses.
Yeah.
They are successful because of all the hard work they did. No other factors played a part. Not the dean who wrote the resume or the application.
Sure.
Not the dad who made a call.
Right.
Only
you deserve that.
We deserve everything we have.
Interesting.
Because I made every right choice along the way to get here. And that's untrue. and untrue and impossible.
Untrue and impossible.
Untrue and impossible.
Untrue and impossible.
But people think that, and if you had to decide today that, like, oh my God, all of my success is not because of my personal merit, you have to take into account that you're not as infallible as you think you were, and that you did have help in getting that, and that you could as easily be that person with nothing tomorrow. Because at the end of the day, it's luck.
So what are you saying, that creates like too much entropy in
people?
Like
you don't want to know that
they're incapable of.
I could never be them. Because I make a choice.
But why?
If
so if you
them,
think like that, do you
doesn't
think
that change your idea of what you think about them?
Well, do you think that creates just too much kind of internal upheaval? Is that why people avoid it? Just can't
that's it.
Stomach the fact
they cannot stomach the fact that tomorrow they could be homeless. They could be without food. I saw a stat that was like 80% of Americans are 2 paychecks away from being homeless. So if you miss 2 paychecks. Mm-hmm. You were the person that you thought made bad decisions yesterday. Because they, like a homeless person, right? Like, oh my God, they did all these things to be homeless. Well, baby, if you miss your check on the 15th, in the 30th, and for some reason your job decided that you weren't well enough in your savings, the 6 months of savings you had are gone, you are them. And you made different choices to get to that position and to have that job, but you could be them. But nobody wants to believe that they could be so infallible and make choices that could lead to that position because they're better. And they're just not. But go ahead. We didn't do no promo. Wrap it up.
Oh my God.
You know me, I ain't no top dog like you over there. I gotta get back
to work. Listen. Big thanks to our sponsor and friend, the Jefferson School Foundation. Proud owner of the Jefferson School City Center, where education, innovation, and community engagement come together to build a brighter future, dedicated to preserving and sustaining the historic Jefferson School. That is jeffersonschoolfoundation.org. It is the beginning of another fiscal year for our wild and wonderful nonprofits.
Get your fiscal year resolutions together.
Get your fiscal year resolutions together. You're going to get a whole host of annual reports here soon from everybody. The mailboxes are going to be full.
Please look out for it.
I mean, just, open them, read them, let us know what you think. Let's see what else we got. If you have ideas for the show or want to contact us, again, check us out on social media on all platforms at United Way Cville, at City of Promise. Drop us a note, envision@unitedwaycville.org. And again, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora. We'll look into getting show notes. That'd be cool. We can link some stuff in there.
We should be more accessible. We need some transcribing.
We should be more accessible. Oh, wow. All right, we're about to turn this into a real thing. Year 5.
Only at year 5 did we really get together.
Yeah. And again, best way to support us is, listen to the show, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, whatever. It's a big tent. This is what, summer special number 1?
This
will be our holiday thing. We'll do a summer special and a holiday
special,
and then all right, I like that. So we're back next week with someone, an actual guest.
Yeah, actual guest.
now that you're tired of hearing us talk, we'll have someone back in the studio next week. For Marki, this is Price. Good luck beating the heat. We'll see you next week.
Peace.